the Afghani students. आप सब अफगानी से हैं कि नहीं पाकिस्तानी हैं?
नो मैम, पाकिस्तानी हमारे साथ यमन वाले।
Okay, the only one guy is okay. Okay, ठीक है ठीक. Okay, so if you remember, we did not study nested if else in the previous lab. So today we are going to go through nested if else. Okay, first of all, remember that there's a difference between nested if else and nested if. If you write one if condition inside another if condition, only if, then that is called a nested if. If you write an if else condition inside another if else, then that is called nested if else. Okay, nested if और nested if else में फर्क है. एक if statement के अंदर अगर हम if statement लिखते हैं उसको nested if कहते हैं, और इसी तरह एक if else के अंदर अगर हम if else लिखते हैं तो उसे nested if else कहते हैं. दोनों सेम चीज नहीं है. Okay, this is now the syntax of a nested if. You see, there is no else related. You first write if condition 1, then if condition 2. So the compiler will enter into the condition 2 if condition 1 is true. So in nested if, you can check multiple conditions, and it can be done from a program where more than one conditions are true. And remember that the curly braces open at the beginning of every if condition, but they will end uh, together at the end of the block. So let's do a lab task on it. It's a very simple lab task. We are just going to enter two numbers, and we will see if both the numbers are greater than 100 or not by using nested if. Okay, so let's declare two variables and ask the user to enter the numbers. Now the numbers will go to A and B. Okay, now let's check if both the numbers are greater than 100 or not. So we cannot just and then do something. So let's say if A is greater than 100, okay. And now let's see if B is also greater than. It's like we are giving all the command control to the first if condition. If B is also greater than 100, A is A and B both are greater than. Okay, so you see what is happening here. It is already written here. Okay, this one is, I think, extra. Okay, so what happens here that when the user enters two numbers, the program checks first, it checks A. If A is greater than 100 and B is not greater than, first it will check if A is greater than 100. Yes, it is greater than 100. Then it will enter the this block, and then it will check if B is greater than 100. Yes, if B is also greater than 100, then it will display this message that A and B both are greater than 100. Let's see. Let's enter A as 200 and B as 300. So 200 and 300 both are greater than 100. It displayed the message. Now, remember one thing. Here, you are giving all the authority to the first if. Why? Even if your A is not greater than 100 and B is greater than 100, it will not enter into the block. So it's kind of this if condition that will let the other the command go inside. See. Let's say I enter A as 80 and B as 200. It still won't go inside the block. See, it's not going inside the block. Why? In order to go inside the block, the first condition has to be true, even if the second is true. But if the first is not true, the compiler will not go here. So you can understand that uh, it can be used for a program where the first must be true in order to the second. For example, let's say some teacher is assigning grades to a student, and he says that the student should do the assignment. Then he will ask them about their percentage. Even if the student has acquired a higher percentage in exams, but his assignments, or let's say his attendance uh, is not complete. So what will happen that he will first check in the outer loop if the attendance is complete and the assignments is complete, then ask him his grades. So even if if the percentage of the student is high and his assignments and attendance is not complete, he won't be awarded A grade. So this is kind of used in those situations. अच्छा, इसका मतलब ये है कि अगर आपका एक कंडीशन ये ट्रू हो भी जाए, मगर ये उस वक्त काम करेगा जब आपका पहला वाला ट्रू हो और दूसरा वाला ट्रू हो। दूसरे वाले को ये एनालाइज ही तब करेगा जब पहला वाला ट्रू होगा। तो ये इस तरह की सिनेरियो में काम आ सकता है जब आपको कोई ऐसा प्रोग्राम मिले कि जिसमें पहले वाले का लाजमी ट्रू होना हो, उसके बाद दूसरा ट्रू हो या ना हो, लेकिन पहला जरूर ट्रू हो, तो आप इसको ऐसी कंडीशंस में इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि ये कंपाइलर इस लूप के इस ब्लॉक के अंदर आएगा ही तब जब ये पहला वाला कंडीशन ट्रू होगा। ये इफ एल्स नहीं है, ये नेस्टेड इफ है। तो ये ट्रू होगा, फिर ये ट्रू होगा, तो तब ये होगा। अगर ये इवन ट्रू हो भी और ये फॉल्स हो तो ये अंदर आएगा ही नहीं। इस तरह, दैट्स हाउ नेस्टेड इफ वर्क्स। ओके। Okay, now I have explained these solutions. Okay, now let's go to the syntax of multiple if else. Now again, it's not nested if else or nested if, it's multiple if else. And previously we also had performed one lab task on multiple if else. So multiple if else is used when we need only one condition to be true, but we have to check it for multiple statements. So this is the syntax: if, then else if, and at the end we have one else. So this is how we use multiple if else. But again, remember, this is used where only one condition can be true at a time. So remember this. And whenever you are given a labs task in your paper, or whenever, you would always look at the requirements and then select the appropriate if statement. Okay, so there is a lab on multiple if else as well. Here, the programmer will enter a number between 1 and 99,999. You will answer the programmer that the number you entered has this many digits. For example, if the user enters 3, you would say the number you entered has one digit. If the user enters 100, you will say the number you entered has 3 digits. And up till 5 digits, you are calculating it. So see here, the answer is only 1. He's only allowed to enter one number. So that number has only a certain amount of digits. That means that you only need one condition to be true. Either the number has 2 digits or 3 digits. It's only one answer. But how many conditions are you going to check? 1 digit, 2 digit, 3 digit, 4 digit, 5 digit. So you have to check it for 5 conditions. But the answer must be only one. So here you are going to use multiple if else, not nested if else. Multiple if else. Okay, I have wrote this program because it's a long program, and that's why I'm not writing it alongside, because it will take a lot of time. Okay. So see, from here, we declared a variable called num. We ask the user enter an integer number between 1 and this. The user entered the number, which is now stored in the variable number. Now what we are going to do is that check it for every condition. So let's check it. If now, what is this statement? This statement is kind of setting a limit. see what kind of limit. If number is less than 10 and number is greater than or equal to 1, we are setting a limit. We are checking if the number is lying between 1 and less than 10. That means between 1 and 9. So the limit is from 1 to 9. Why? Because from 1 to 9 there is one digit. So it means if the number is equal to or greater than 1, that means start from 1, or greater than 1, yes, go. And here we say number is less than 10. That means up till 9. And you know that what does and gate do? Both of them has to be true. Otherwise this won't work. So if both of them is true, then definitely the number has one digit, and we would display it's a single digit number. And if it is not true, then it will go to this condition, else if. And then it will see if the number is greater than or equal to 10. Why? Because from 10 two digits start. 9 के बाद 10 से two digits start होते हैं ना. But it
Yes.
will go up to 99, because up till 99 we have two digits. So we say number is less than 100. So it will check from 10 to 99 and then say it's a two digit number. In the third statement, it will check from 100 up to 999, because at 1000 four digits starts. Similarly, it will start from 1000 and check up to 1999 or something. Okay? Up till 9999, up till 10,000, because at 10,000 five digits start. And then this is the last one for five digits. The last else is the number is not between one. What if the user enters like a bigger number than it, or the user enters 0? So at the end, we will display this message. Let's run it. Okay. So I entered 100. Oh, sorry, 199. So these are three digits. It's a three-digit number. Let's enter a bigger number, which is not in this case. 19786. See, this is not in our if conditions. It will give us the last else. Number is not between 1 and this. I think you got the point. Okay. Okay, now, okay, I also have done these steps. These are kind of explaining this lab task on the slides as well. Okay, comparison says that a multiple if else can be much faster than a series of single selection if. Why? Because in single selection if structure, the rule is that the compiler goes to every if and checks them. But in a if else condition, if one of them is true, if let's say the first one is true, the compiler does not bother to check the remaining one, and it goes to the end of this else if block. मतलब ये कि अगर मल्टीपल इफ में जो मल्टीपल इफ हो, उसमें कंपाइलर सारों को चेक करता है. इसमें ये कानून है कि कंपाइलर में अगर ये पहला वाला ट्रू हो गया, पहला इफ, तो ये बाकी सबको स्किप कर देगा और एंड पे चला जाएगा. ये इस मल्टीपल इफ एल्स का कानून है. ये बाकी को चेक ही नहीं करेगा. बस एक इफ कंडीशन है, पहली वाली ट्रू हो गई, एग्जिट कर लिया इसने. तो ये कहते हैं कि मल्टीपल इफ एल्स जो है वो दूसरे जो यहाँ पे हमारे पास होते हैं ना, बाकी इफ कंडीशंस, मल्टीपल इफ कंडीशंस से मल्टीपल इफ एल्स अच्छा है, क्योंकि इसमें सिर्फ कंपाइलर जल्दी काम कर सकता है. अब when we are doing it, we do not see the difference, about the computing time. We are getting the answers in a second, but on a higher level, they are checking the computing time. If there are so many if else statements, or if there are many if statements, so they say that the compiler will take less time to give you the answer. We are not seeing that time delay, but maybe huge programmers are seeing those time delays. मतलब हमें तो नहीं पता चल रहा कि ये लेट हो रहा है, हमें तो उसी वक्त आंसर आ जाता है. मगर रियल टाइम में ये जब बड़े बड़े प्रोग्राम्स लिखते हैं सॉफ्टवेयर, तो उनको फिर पता चलता है कंप्यूटिंग टाइम में. Okay, now this is the last task for our nested if else. Here we are going to check nested if else in order to see the difference. We checked nested if, We checked multiple if else, and now we are going to check nested if else. So what we are going to do is the lab is about, we are taking a number from the user. So in the first if condition, we will see if it is 0 or not 0, and then we will see if it is even or odd. What with the if else condition. No. Okay. See, we ask the user for we declared a variable number. We ask the user to enter the integer. It goes to the variable number. Now there are two if conditions. No, sorry, two if else conditions. The first if condition will see if number is not equal to 0. If it is equal to 0, then it will go down to this else. This else is associated with the first if. ये पहले if के साथ है ये वाला else. अगर ये बात सच हो गई यानी कि नंबर 0 के इक्वल है, ठीक है, इफ नंबर इज नॉट इक्वल टू 0, और फर्ज करें नंबर 0 है, तो ये कंडीशन फॉल्स हो गई, तो ये सबसे अपने एल्स पे चला जाएगा, और इसका एल्स है द नंबर इज 0 एंड इट इज नीदर इवन और ऑड. If this if condition is true, that means go inside. Now it will come here. Now here it will check if the number modulus 2 double is equal to 0, it is even, else it is odd. Okay, so in all these conditions, if this if has to be true in order to get inside here. If this if is false, then it will go to its else. You can see there is if else inside if else. This is the outer if condition, this is the outer else condition, and then inside these two conditions there is another if else. That's why it is called nested if else. See, let's I am entering 0. The number is 0 and it is neither even nor odd. Okay, let's enter 9. The number is odd. So see, you can see the difference between nested if and nested if else. Okay. Okay. Now let's move to switch statement. Okay. Switch statement is also like if else conditions, or we can say multiple if else conditions, multiple if else. But the syntax is different and the way it is carried out is different. Otherwise it is the same thing. स्विच स्टेटमेंट भी इफ एल्स की तरह ही है, लेकिन इसमें भी हम ऐसा करते हैं कि एट अ टाइम सिर्फ एक ही बात सच हो, इस तरह हम बनाते हैं. तो ये भी इफ एल्स की तरह ही है, लेकिन इसका सिर्फ सिंटेक्स चेंज है और तरीक़ाकार चेंज है. इफ इन इफ एल्स वी चेक फॉर द, अच्छा ठीक है अभी अटेंडेंस नहीं है, अभी तो टाइम है. ओके, इन इफ एल्स वी काइंड ऑफ चेक अ कंडीशन, but in switch statement we check the value of a variable. So if you see, even in if else you are also kind of checking the value of a variable. If a is less than b, or if a is less than 100, so what is a is actually a variable, but you are checking it in kind of a conditional way. Here you are doing the same thing but in a different way, and some people like switch statement more than if else, but if else is used more than switch statement. Okay, so let's look at switch statement. A switch statement allows a variable to be tested or checked. Now there we were also checking the value of a variable. Here again we are checking the value of a variable. Each value is called a case, so each value of the variable is called a case. Let's do it. Okay, switch. Now what is here? The value of the variable whose values are going to be checked. Let's do our first lab task. So let's check our switch statement in a very easy way, so that we can see that what is switch statement are about. Okay, so what are we going to do? We declared a variable number. We ask the user to enter any value. This is a very easy one. So the user entered any value. Now it can be any value, but let's use a switch statement and see that what is the value of the variable, what is the number that the user entered. So what variable is checked would be written inside the switch statement. That means switch num. It means check for the values of this number. How? Then we write a braces, bracket open, and then here we write multiple case statements. Now this means case, this is the value of the variable if it occurs. If whenever we write if this, here we are saying case this. That means let's say 28 plus, this was actually for, okay, case 28 and colon, not semicolon. If this happens, it means if the value of the variable number is 28, then you should say whatever you want to say. See out case 1 value is 28, or you can say, oh, the first case is true, or, and then you would write a break. Break means if this is true, then exit the switch condition. If you do not write break, then this, there is a huge kind of error. Then it will go and it will say all the if the switch statements. अच्छा, आई विल से इट इन उर्दू। इसका मतलब ये है कि ये जो ब्रेक स्टेटमेंट है ना, अगर आपने ये नहीं लगाया तो इसमें एक मसला आता है। ये क्या करता है, अगर पहला केस ट्रू हो जाता है, ये सी आउट देता है, लेकिन ये सब बाकियों का भी देगा। ये इसमें एक एरर है। तो उस एरर से बचने के लिए हम क्या करते हैं कि हम हर स्विच स्टेटमेंट के बाद ब्रेक लगाते हैं। ब्रेक लगाना लाजमी है। इसका मतलब है कि अगर ये वाला कंडीशन हो गया तो ब्रेक करो, मतलब बस खत्म, इसके यहाँ से निकल जाओ। ये चाहे इसके एट अ टाइम 3-4 कंडीशंस भी ट्रू हो, लेकिन स्विच में हम ऐसा, वी यूज a kind of scenario where only one can be true. Okay, now the second condition is case 35. That means if the value of the number is 35. Now the reason that I have given it these random numbers is because when we are studying, it says case 1, case 2, case 3. So usually the student thinks that case 1 is kind of first case and no. Whatever is written in front of case is the value of variable for which is checked. यानी कि अक्सर केस 1, केस 2, केस 3 लिखा होता है, तो स्टूडेंट समझते हैं कि इसका मतलब है कि पहला केस, दूसरा। देखिए उसका मतलब होता है वो वैल्यू उस वेरिएबल की अगर अकर हो गई। तो मैंने यहाँ पे 28, 35 ये मिक्स इसलिए लिखा है ताकि आपको पता चले कि इसका मतलब पहला, दूसरा, तीसरा केस नहीं है, बल्कि इसका मतलब है अगर 20, इस नंबर की वैल्यू 28 हुई, अगर नंबर की वैल्यू 35 आ गई, अगर नंबर की वैल्यू 40 आ गई, ये इसलिए हम इस्तेमाल करते हैं। तो ये करो, ठीक है। सो वी आर ओनली चेकिंग दिस फॉर 3 केसेस। यस, एनी क्वेश्चन?
एक्सक्यूज मी मैम, ये तो ऐसा लग रहा है कि जैसे एफ एल्स हुए हो, क्योंकि ये काम हम एफ एल्स पे भी करते हैं। अगर हम कंडीशन डाल दे कि कंडीशन 28 है, अगर एफ 28 है तो ये वैल्यू लाओ, एफ
बिल्कुल।
35 है,
तो
क्या
मैंने
जरूरत है मैम?
ये असल में मल्टीपल आपको बता रहे हैं ना कि आप स्विच भी इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं, आप इफ एल्स भी इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं। ये भी एक अल्टरनेट वे है। It is exactly like if else, like, but it's an alternate way. It's like the program, जिस तरह आप लोग in any language you can say one thing in many ways. एक ही बात आप 2-3 तरीकों से कर सकते हैं, तो इसी तरह यहाँ पर भी उन्होंने आपको एक ही बात 2-3 तरीकों से करने की फैसिलिटी दी हुई है। अदरवाइज एग्जैक्टली द सेम थिंग। ठीक है, आपको, that's a good thing that you understand. It is like multiple if else. Agar if this is true, then it will exit. Else it will check this. It is true, then it will exit and it will keep on checking. So let's run. No, no, wait a minute. One thing. At the end, you write another statement default. The word is default. It means that what if none of these if conditions is true? None of these cases are true. Then what should we tell the user? Then we should say, let's say the value doesn't match our case statement or anything. You are wrong, your answer or whatever. Again, there is a colon, not a semicolon. A semicolon is after the break statement, but after the case statement, there is a colon with दो dots होते हैं, ठीक है? Let's run it. enter any value. So there is 28. I enter 28, case 1. Value is 28. Let's enter a value which is not here. So let's say let's enter 76. Value doesn't match our case statements. So again, it is just like if else conditions, but kind of in a different way, and the syntax is different. Okay. Now let's go to the second lab task. This is kind of a better. If you remember in your first lab task, second lab task, or I think second, yes, where we told you guys that ask the user for two integers and display the sum, multiplication, division, subtraction. Remember that. So it is also like that, but here when the user enter two numbers, you ask him that he wants to add them or subtract them or multiply them or divide them. You are not just going to display everything, the division is, the multiplication is. So you are going to ask the user that if what does he wants to do with these two variables. इसमें ये कि ये एक किस्म का कैलकुलेटर है, हम यूजर से दो नंबर मांगेंगे और हम उससे ऑपरेटर मांगेंगे कि भाई आपने प्लस करना है, इनको माइनस करना है, जितने भी हम डिफाइन करेंगे, और फिर उसने जो ऑपरेटर एंटर किया उसके मुताबिक फिर हम उसको आंसर देंगे. So here we are kind of going to check the operator in the switch statement. If the user entered a plus, then add the two variable. If the user entered a minus, and so on. Okay. So here, as I told you guys that in C++, plus, minus, multiply, divide, here we can only store them as characters. So that's why for that purpose I have declared a variable O for operator. That's why it's O, and it is a type of character variable. And the reason that for the two numbers I have declared a float, because it can be in points when you are dividing the values. So that's why float has been declared. Num1, num2. So first of all, we ask the user to enter an operator. That means what does he want to do? He wants to add them, multiply them, subtract them, and these four operators. So the user will enter an operator. Whatever he enters will be stored in the character variable O. Then we will ask the user to enter two operands. One will go to num1 and the other will go to num2. Now, we know how to add them, how to subtract them, but we have to select if it says plus them or minus them. So the switch statement will work on the character value. See? Switch O, that means whatever the user entered, plus, minus, that is stored in the O variable. So check for the variable O. Okay, what case? What if the user entered plus? But remember, a character variable is always written inside single quotations. I think you remember it from your previous labs. It's not an integer variable. Integer variable value can be written directly, but a character value is always used inside single commas. So if the user entered plus, you should just see out num1 plus num2. So here, the numbers are added at the output quite easily, and it's done. Great. Let's say case minus. If the guy entered minus, then what should you do? Just minus num1 from 2 or num2 from num1. It depends upon you. If the user entered steric, which is for multiplication, then you just multiply them. Or if the user entered backslash, then divide them. Or if the user, let's say our default says that operator, let's say if the user entered not anything like plus, minus, multiply, divide, he entered something else, then we would say that your operator doesn't match any case. And here I have wrote two cout statements in order to show you that we can have multiple statements in our default, or even in our case statements. Not only one statement, we can have multiple statements. And then the program is finished. So let's see, enter an operator. Let's say I enter divide. Enter two operands, 2, 4. So it will divide 2 by 4. So the answer will be in points. 0.5. See? But because I have stored them in float, So it is giving me the answer in points. Let's enter a wrong variable. Okay, let's say I entered this 2, 3. Operator doesn't match any constant. Error. Operator is not correct. See? Now you see that I entered a wrong operator. Okay, but it did not display the message at that time. Why? Because I told you guys that C++ works from top to bottom. So on top, when I entered a wrong operator, it is here. And then it asked me for 2 operands. Then when the compiler came to the switch statement, then it saw that the operator is actually wrong. So it works from top to bottom, left to right. Here there is no command for checking the value of operator. Here it is only for entering the value. इसका मतलब ये है कि मैंने स्टार्ट में इन ऑपरेटर गलत इंटर किया, मगर उसने मुझे स्टार्ट में नहीं कहा कि आपने तो गलत इंटर किया है, क्योंकि हमने स्टार्ट में ऐसा कोई कमांड ही नहीं रखा कि भाई चेक करो कि गलत है कि ठीक है। वो उसने सारा प्रोसेस यहाँ तक कर लिया, फिर जब वो यहाँ पर आया तो यहाँ पर आकर उसको पता चला कि इसने जो नंबर इंटर किया, जो ऑपरेटर, वो तो मेरे पास है ही नहीं उसका ऑप्शन, तो फिर मैं उसको डिफॉल्ट दूंगा कि भाई आपने गलत ऑपरेटर। इफ यू डू नॉट गिव डिफॉल्ट then it doesn't do anything. So default is a good programming practice. Otherwise, it's not mandatory. Okay. So that was our switch statement, which is explained here. Now let's go to our next topic, that is while loop. Okay, now remember when last time, because of COVID, we were all in the quarantine. So at that time, we were, I think, in while loop. So these slides are very much detailed. I have like explained each and every lab with the huge detail on these slides. But later on, we said when the students were kind of getting into the labs, then we started explaining the labs less. But these are kind of the beginning labs from the last year COVID. So these have a lot of details on the slides as well. So if you are not understanding, you can even read the slides of this while loop and the nested if. There's huge detail. Now this is actually the link of the dev cpp, because we were teaching dev cpp last time, but this time you already have your code blocks, and this is about the book, because this was the first lecture at that time. Okay, so what is a loop? A loop is used to execute a block of code repeatedly until a certain condition is satisfied. Okay, that means if the condition is true, the loop will keep on repeating until that condition becomes false. So it will keep on repeating until the condition is false. The condition is true, it will keep on repeating. मतलब जब तक आपकी कंडीशन ट्रू है, लूप रिपीट होता जाएगा। जब कंडीशन फॉल्स हो जाएगी, तब लूप अपनी रिपीटिशन बंद कर देगा। So we have 3 type of loops in C++. One is for loop, one is while loop. Now again, as the student earlier said, that we have if statement. While loop can do the same thing which for loop does, but we have both of them. It's like it's like a variety of loops. And we have another loop that is called a do while loop. But people prefers to use a for loop more than a while loop, because for loop is more better to understand. So today we are going to talk about while loop, because this is how we do it. We first learn while loop and then we go to for loop. Okay, so this is how while loop is written. You write while, then inside small brackets the condition, and then whatever you want to repeat should be written inside these curly braces. So if till this condition is true, this will keep on going again and again. When this condition becomes false, then it will stop. Okay, now rather than going to the first lab task, I will just do a small program to make you understand while loop. Okay, let's say I have a variable a. Because in order to run a loop, you need some condition, and definitely in C++ we use conditions. We use variables in condition. ओके देखिए, लूप को चलाने के लिए हमें एक नंबर की जरूरत पड़ती है, एक कंडीशन की जरूरत पड़ती है, और कंडीशन के अंदर हम हमेशा एक वेरिएबल ही इस्तेमाल करते हैं। नाउ दिस ए, by default, what is the value of a? By default, I haven't given any value of a, but if I display it, it will display 0. See? 0. It means that if you do not give any value to variable a, then the value 0 is stored there. Okay. Now I want to run my loop. I will write while. And what condition do I have to write here? While a is less than 10. Now a is definitely less than 10, because by default the value of a is actually 0. So this condition is true, and write inside here. So whatever I'm writing inside here will keep on happening again and again until a is less than 10. So let's say I am not doing anything, I'm just asking him to display a. Okay, fine. But there is another thing. This can be an infinite loop. Let me show you. Because a will always be less than 10. And you will see that this is an infinite loop. You see? This is how an infinite loop works. Because a is less than 10, a is 0. And it will always be less than 10 until you do something to make it equal to 10. So what are you going to do? Inside the loop, you are going to include a statement which is going to increment the value of a by 1. What does it do? The first time you display a, after this a will become 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. And the condition will be false at a point when it is actually, when a becomes 9. See? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. A becomes 9, stop displaying a. It is less than 10. When a becomes 10, then the condition is false. So it will stop. इसका मतलब ऐसे है कि देखिए, ए को आपने इंक्रीमेंट करना है, वरना तो वो सारी उम्र ही ए 10 से छोटा रहेगा, वो तो 0 है। तो उसको आपने एक एक नंबर या तो ऊपर देना है, या अगर ए लेट से 10 था तो फिर आपने उसको नीचे ले जाना है। अदरवाइज होगा क्या कि वो इनफाइनाइट लूप चलेगा, आपका ए नहीं बढ़ रहा। तो व्हाइल लूप में ये ड्रॉबैक है कि आपने ये कंडीशन खुद देनी है लूप के अंदर, इसको इंक्रीमेंट करने की और डिक्रीमेंट करने की, अदरवाइज दिस विल बी इनफाइनाइट। सो you are actually telling the compiler increment it after one condition. Now I said decrement. Let's see what is with decrement. If it is, let's say 10, then I will say when a becomes less than or equal to 1. So here I cannot write this value. Here I am going to write decrement. Why? Because a is actually 10. So it will display 10. Then when a minus minus, it will become 9, 8, 7, 6, and so on. Oh, sorry. Okay. Actually, this is something. Yes. It was actually a wrong condition because a was not less than 1. A was actually greater than 1. It was actually 10. So the condition was not true. You know, I write a is less than 1 or equal to 1. It is not true. A is actually 10. So I am going to tell the compiler up till a. So I will say when a becomes greater than or equal to 1, then it will be true. Why? Because a is now greater than 1 already. But it will keep on happening until a is greater than or equal to 1. The moment it becomes equal to 1, then it will stop. See, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You want to make it more better, add an end line here. So after every loop, the line will be ended. See, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It stopped at 1. Why? Because I told him if while a is greater than or equal to 1. So remember, when you can reversely display the numbers, you can display the number in a forward manner. The reason that I'm doing this is just to give you a glimpse at how loops work. इसका मतलब ये है ना कि आप इसको रिवर्स में भी कर सकते हैं और फॉरवर्ड में भी कर सकते हैं, हम सिर्फ डिस्प्ले कर रहे हैं ए को, ठीक है। तो रिवर्स में ये है कि आपने बड़े नंबर देना है, और फॉरवर्ड में आपने लूप को 1 से स्टार्ट करना है। ठीक है। So remember, this condition and this thing usually causes confusion, but it can be avoided if you just practice more. Okay, now let's look at the first lab task. It says write a C++ program that inputs a series of 10 numbers. Now remember, not one number, 10 numbers. You cannot write 10 cout statements. You know why? Because that would be a very bad programming technique. Programming has already given you a easy way to write a loop. So don't write 10 cout statements or 10 variable declaration. Just write one cout and think of a logic in which you also need one variable, not 10 variables, and determines and prints the largest of the numbers. Now, first, I mean, you would have 10 numbers, and then you would select the largest among those 10 numbers. Any question? Someone is okay. It means that ask the user to enter 10 numbers, okay, and then display the largest among all of them. So if you are doing them in your without the loop, you are going to declare 10 numbers, and then you are going to ask 10 cout statements, and then after those 10 cout statements, when you are writing them, you are then going to compare the number like 10 times. If a is greater than b, greater than c, d, e, 10 times, that is quite a long way to do it. And being a good programmer, you must go to shortcuts. ठीक है, अगर आप 10 बार यूजर से नंबर मांगे, और मतलब आप लिख के और 10 बार वो नंबर दे, और फिर उसको 10 बार कंपेयर करे एक दूसरे, यानी कि एक ही एक स्टेटमेंट लिखे बी की, सी की, डी की, तो ये तो बहुत ही लंबा हो जाएगा। तो हमें कंपाइलर ने आसानी दी है, विच इज एक्चुअली द लूप. So it can be any loop, but right now we are learning while loop, so we will go to while loop. So how are we going to do that? Only one variable? No, we kind of need two variables here. Let's no, no, I'm not running the loop, and you see why am I not running? Because the question also said to compare and display the largest. वो कह रहा है कि सबसे largest पे display करो. तो ये जो मैं थोड़ा सा एक मामूली step करूँ, this is for displaying the largest one. Sorry. Okay. Enter a numbers. Enter a number. That number will go to the variable large. What does that mean? That means I suppose that the first number the user entered is the largest number. Suppose. Okay. Now I have to run the loop 10 times. Okay. Okay. Now here, in order to run the loop, I also need another variable. It's kind of the loop variable, and I haven't given it any value. So definitely the value of number is right now 0. The number that the user entered is stored in the variable large. Now I have to run the loop. While how many times do I have to run? I have to run it like 9 times, because once we already got a number. And the number is actually 0. So I have to run it from 0 to 8. Why? Because 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It starts from 0, so it will be total 9 up to 8. If I say is equal to 1, then I will run it up to 9. Okay. And what should it do 9 times? You should ask the user for the number, enter the next number. And the number should go into the variable a. Why am I doing this? Let's see. But I cannot do the comparison 10 times. I mean, we also have to see that which one of them is the largest number. So, okay, एक बार मैं I will say it once in Urdu as well. 9 बार मैं क्या करना चाह रही हूँ, मैं यूजर से कह रही हूँ नंबर इंटर करी, क्योंकि हमें 10 बार इंटर कराना है। एक बार तो मैंने वाइल लूप के बाहर ही नंबर ले लिया, अब दूसरी बार मैं 9 बार ये काम कर लूंगी, लेकिन 9 बार सिर्फ नंबर नहीं चाहिए, बल्कि अगर हमारे पास नंबर आ रहा है तो हम उसको साथ साथ चेक भी करें कि भाई ये बड़ा है पिछले वाले से, नहीं नहीं बड़ा, तो फिर दूसरा, क्योंकि 9 बार एक काम करना मुश्किल है, सो क्यों ना हम लूप से ही वो काम ले। ठीक है, कैसे? अब if the number which the user entered in the second term a is larger, sorry, is greater than the number which the user entered the previous time, which was stored in the variable large, that means a is large. So what should we do? Don't do anything, just give that value to large. So that means put the value of a inside the variable large. We are not displaying anything. What does that mean? The first number, let's say the user entered 5. Let's say the user entered 5. Now large has the value 5. Now the second time, let's say the user entered 6. So here we are checking it if a is greater than large. Yes, it is greater than large. Large has 5 and a has 6. So what should we do? Put the value of a in large. Remove 5 and put 6. Okay, that means, the right side goes to the left side. I told you guys. This goes to this. So a goes to large. So now large has removed 5 and 6 is there. Now uh, we have to increment the number as well, because the number is 0 and we are telling it to be up till 9. So it will always be less than 9 until we do something. So here the loop will be incremented. Now the number will become 1. Again, the user will be asked for a number. The user will enter a number. It will be stored in variable a. Again, they will check. Now the large has value 6. Let's say the user again entered a larger number. So large will remove the previous value and the new value of a will be stored here, and so on. So what is happening 9 times? The user is entering numbers as well as the comparisons are also happening along with the entering of numbers. यानी कि साथ साथ नंबर भी इंटर हो रहा है और साथ साथ कंपैरिजन भी हो रही है हर नंबर की। तो अगर वो पिछले वाले से छोटा है तो उसको हटाया जा रहा है, इस तरह हो रहा है। ठीक है, दिस इज अ here let's just display the largest number. Definitely it is stored in the variable large. Why? Because whenever a is greater than large, put a inside large. Let's run it. Enter a number. Now this is the first cout statement outside the loop. Let's say I enter 12. Enter the next number. Now count the way. 3, 4, 5, 8, 15, 18. The largest number is 34. Now see how many times we run the loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Otherwise, the condition says the number is less than 9, but it starts from 0 because we haven't declared that start from 1 or 2. So it starts from 0 and runs up till 8 because 8 is less than 9. So when it becomes equal to 9, then the loop stops. I hope you guys understand. इसकी समझ आ गई? You guys have studied it in theory. So
मैम ये वाइल की जो कंडीशन है ना, जो हमने लेस देन 9 की है, ये बात कुछ समझ नहीं आई।
अच्छा, देखिए, हम जो while लूप को कंडीशन देंगे, मैंने आपसे कहा ना, while लूप के ब्लॉक के अंदर, इस ब्लॉक के अंदर ये जो है यहाँ से लेकर यहाँ तक, ठीक है, ये सब कुछ होता जाएगा जब तक ये कंडीशन ट्रू है। अब आपने इसमें ऐसी कंडीशन देनी है जो ट्रू हो। आपने लिखा नंबर जब तक 9 से कम है, तो ये काम करते जाओ। अब आपने 9 से कम क्यों कहा? क्योंकि नंबर की वैल्यू है 0। मैंने आपसे कहा ना, बाय डिफॉल्ट एक वेरिएबल की वैल्यू 0 होती है, और आपको उसने कंपाइलर ने प्रोग्राम में कहा है कि भाई 10 नंबर लो, तो एक तो हमने ले लिया लूप के बगैर। अब हम 9 बार चलाएंगे, तो मैंने ये क्यों कहा कि नंबर 9 से कम है? क्योंकि मेरे पास नंबर की वैल्यू 0 है और मैं चाहती हूँ कि वो 9 से कम रहे, यानी कि 0 से 9 तक, 8 तक 9 नंबर हो जाएंगे। दूसरा ये कि कंडीशन इस वक्त ट्रू है, नंबर इस वक्त 9 से कम है, और सारी उम्र ही 9 से कम रहेगा क्योंकि उसकी वैल्यू 0 है। जब तक आप उसको यहाँ पर इंक्रीमेंट ना करें। तो ये कंडीशन आपने इसमें ऐसी रखनी है कि वो ट्रू भी हो और वो आप उसको इंक्रीमेंट कर सके, ये लूप की कंडीशन हो। ऐसा ना हो, फॉर एग्जाम्पल आई नो दैट द number is less than 9 because it is 0, but let's say if I give it a wrong condition, like if I say number is greater than 9, to see it will not enter the loop. You will see it asks you for a number 12. The largest number is 12. What happened? No entering into loop. Why? Because the condition is wrong. The number is not greater than 9. It is less than 9. So you have to give it a valid condition. ये आप जब 2-3 लैप्स करेंगे तो आपको जरा समझ आ जाएगा कि हम इसको कंडीशन कैसे देते हैं। कंडीशन बस इसको एक किस्म का लूप का वेरिएबल ही देना होगा जो कि ट्रू
क्लियर
भी हो
मैम?
और आगे भी हो। ठीक है,
यस मैम।
ओके। Now I have explained this lab in many slides. This was because I told you because of COVID. Now let's go to lab task 2. This is an easy one but a bit confusing for some students. It says write a program in which the user enters a number, okay, and the program prints its factorial. Now you guys know how do we measure a factorial. Let's say I enter 5. So what is the factorial of 5? 5 into 4 into 3 into 2 into 1. That's how we measure a factor, not into 0, because if I say 0, then it will become 0. So factorial is kind of multiplying backwards. Let's see. Now, definitely, if the user enters a big number, then it is very difficult to find the factorial. So that's why we need a loop. Now, remember one thing that, okay, I will say it after the lab. Okay. I declared two variables, number and factorial, okay? And I asked the user to enter a positive integer because we cannot find the factorial of a negative number. Now the user entered a value, whatever he wants to find, it's stored in the variable number. Now I also stored that in variable factorial. Whatever is the number is also stored in factorial. This is what we say. Factorial has the previous value of 0, and I said that I told the compiler put the value of number inside factorial. So it removed 0 and number is now stored in factorial. So you see factorial is also 5 and number is also 5. Now we will see why are we doing this. Another thing, there are many ways of factorials on the internet, but the reason that I selected this way is because this is kind of uh, related to our knowledge. Our knowledge says that 5 into 4 into 3. So that's why this loop is also kind of going to go backwards, which will kind of make things easier for us. Okay, now factorial has also the value of 5, for example, and the number is also, both of them have the same value. Here you would understand that why do we need those values. Okay, while let's now run the loop. Number is greater than 1. Definitely, number would be greater than 1 because factorial of 1 is actually 1. So the number is greater than 1. The condition is true. What should we do? Number minus minus is the first step. Decrement the number. Why decrement the number? Because we know that in a factorial, you multiply the factorial with a smaller number. If the factorial is 5, you multiply it with 4 and then with 3. So we are actually decrementing it in the first step. So if the number was 5, make it 4. Okay. And what should you do? Multiply that 4 with the 5. What, what does this step means? Factorial is equal to factorial into number. This is very much different from this one. What does this mean? When we are using this statement, it means remove the previous value of factorial and put the new value number inside it. But when you write this statement, factorial is equal to factorial into number, or factorial is equal to factorial plus number, or whatever is here, it means that you have to retain the previous value. Whatever, this means If I just write factorial is equal to number, that would be wrong. That would say that put the value of number inside factorial and whatever is inside factorial, remove it. But this says no, keep the value of factorial and multiply it with number and then put both of the values again inside factorial. This is what it means. ओके इसका मतलब ये है कि ये जो स्टेटमेंट है ये क्या करेगा, फैक्टोरियल की पुरानी वैल्यू हटा के नंबर इसमें डाल देगा। लेकिन ये स्टेटमेंट कहता है कि पुरानी वैल्यू को नंबर के साथ मल्टीप्लाई करो और फिर जो आंसर आता है उसको फैक्टोरियल में डाल दो। इसका फायदा ये है कि ये पुरानी वैल्यू को भी रखता है। ये स्टेटमेंट ये याद रखिए, फैक्टोरियल इज इक्वल टू फैक्टोरियल इंटू नंबर। फैक्टोरियल में पिछली बार से जो भी पढ़ा हुआ था, इसमें पिछली बार से क्या पढ़ा हुआ था, वो नंबर पढ़ा हुआ था जो यूजर एंटर किया। फैक्टोरियल इंटू नंबर, उसके साथ मल्टीप्लाई करो और फिर जो भी आंसर आता है उसको यहाँ पे रखो। इसका मतलब ये है कि हमारी पुरानी वैल्यू नहीं जाएगी। दिस इज हाउ वी यूज अ कमांड इन सी प्लस प्लस, द ओल्ड वैल्यू रिटेन्स देयर because we need the old value. Okay, so in the first step, what is left here? Now again, students will ask, why are you using number here? Why am I using number here as a loop variable? Because our loop depends on the number the user entered. It is not some value that I will run from 1 to 9. It is actually dependent on the factorial value. If the user enters 6, then definitely I will count back from 6. If the user enters 7 factorial, then I will count back from 7. So here I cannot put the while loop variable on my own, like for 10 repetitions or 12. No. That repetitions will depend on the number user entered. अगर user ने 8 enter किया है तो मुझे ये 8 से गिनना है ना backwards. अगर user ने 5 enter किया है तो मुझे ये 5 से backwards गिनना है। तो इसलिए यहाँ पर हम वही नंबर लिख रहे हैं जो यूजर ने एंटर किया है, मगर पहले ही स्टेप में हम उसको एक स्टेप छोटा कर रहे हैं क्योंकि हमने फैक्टोरियल में वो नंबर डाल दिया है। तो फैक्टोरियल में 5 पड़ा हुआ है और हम चाहते हैं कि फैक्टोरियल किससे मल्टीप्लाई हो, 4 से, जिससे हम फैक्टोरियल करते हैं। ओके, नाउ दिस 20 is stored in factorial. Okay, it come up again. Number is still greater than 1. Here it became 4, but it is still greater than 1. Okay, now it is 4. Okay, oh, it come here, it becomes 3. Factorial into number. What was stored here? 20. 20 into 3. 60. Okay, put 60 here. Come back again. Yes, 3 is still greater than 1. Come here. Oh, it became 2. 120, 20 into 3 is 60. 60 into 2, 120. Put 120 here. Okay, it comes back here. Now the number is 2, but here the number is 1. Okay, multiply it with 1, the same answer, 120. Now come here again. Oh, 1 is not greater than 1. Loop finished. Come out here and display factorial. Okay, another thing, I have wrote it here on a page in order to make you guys understand that this is how it works. While number is greater than 1, suppose he entered 5. So in the first step, what are we doing? We are decrementing it, so it becomes 4. Do we say factorial is equal to factorial into number? That means factorial has 5, 5 into 4. It is now 20, which is stored in factorial. Now in the next iteration, the number is 3 because we say minus minus number, so it became 3. So what was stored in factorial? 20. 20 into 3 is equal to 60. Now in the next iteration, the number becomes 2. So 2 into 120 is 120, and there is no need to check for 1 because it will be again the same answer. So let's run it. Enter a post, let's say enter 5 and see factorial is 120. Let's enter 6 and factorial is 720. So see, this program is giving us factorial. Another thing, for your information, these are, you cannot solve a factorial if you don't know it. By that I mean that when you are sitting in the exam, you should already know how to find a factorial. Otherwise, you cannot just come on your own with the solution. इसका मतलब ये कि अगर आप पेपर में कभी फैक्टोरियल का या ऐसे कोई सवाल आता है जो आज अभी हम करेंगे, तो ये ऐसे सवाल नहीं है कि ये आप अपने आप से कर दे उस वक्त सोचे सोचे। ये सवाल आपको पहले से आने चाहिए, इस तरह के आंसर्स हैं। ये मेथड आपको पहले से आना चाहिए कि भाई फैक्टोरियल कैसे निकालते हैं। अदरवाइज उस वक्त ये नहीं होगा, उस वक्त आप नहीं सोच सकते इसको, ये इस तरह के सवाल हैं। तो ये सवाल पहले से मतलब अब मैं आपको कोई इस तरह का दूसरी तरह का लॉजिक दूँ तो आप कर लेंगे, लेकिन ये जो फैक्टोरियल वाले हैं, इसके बाद ई पावर वाले हैं, ये आपको पहले से ही आने चाहिए। और ये ऐसे सवाल हैं जिसमें हम चेंजेस नहीं कर सकते। ज्यादा से ज्यादा आपको टीचर ये कह दे कि 3 नंबरों का फैक्टोरियल निकाले, 4 नंबरों का निकाले, वो फिर दूसरी तरीके से, लेकिन फैक्टोरियल निकालना आपको आना चाहिए। ओके, now this is not the end. We are going to move towards our third lab task, which is kind of difficult in the beginning, but will become easier when you practice more on it. Now, if you look at the value E, which is called Euler's constant, and it is also in the calculator, we call it exponential. Here they say that E is measured by this series. Okay, that's how E is measured, and the value of E is actually 2.71823 something. It is telling you guys that E is being measured by this series. And okay, that's not our problem to see how E is measured by this series. Our job is to measure the value of E using ́siːःplus. In simple way, we are going to make a program that has the value of 1. Then in the next iteration, it adds 1 by 1 factorial, then 1 by 2 factorial, then 1 by 3 factorial, and so on. This is our program. And at the end, we will calculate the value of E. So we are not considered that we do not care that how this series came into being. We have to now put this series into our compiler in a loop, so that the loop on every iteration update our variable. Now this is kind of difficult, but you would see that this huge thing is done in 3 lines. Okay, another thing, if you look at this program, this is a dot 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 dot. That means in maths this is actually an infinite series, but we don't have that much time. We cannot measure infinite series, so we cannot just go infinitely in C++. We have to give it a limit. So usually we give it a limit up to, let's say, 10. That means our job is to find the answer of 1 plus 1 by 1 factorial plus 1 by 2 factorial plus 1 by 3 factorial plus 1 by 4 up to 1 by 10 factorial, and that's it. Not more than that. Yeah. So this is what we are going to measure. Now let's start the program. This is definitely going to be difficult. It is difficult, but with a bit of practice you can do it. Okay, now here float n is equal to 1. Okay, this is a variable we need. This is the reason that I have given them float, because the answer is in 2 point something, so it's a better thing to put all the variables in float, otherwise it will give us error. और थोड़ा सा फिर इसमें कुछ और करना पड़ता है which will make you guys confused. So it's a better thing to use the float from the beginning. Okay, what is accuracy? Accuracy is actually the limit, plus 1 by 10 factorial. So here I am saying that it should be up to 10. So that's why accuracy is that number up to which we want to measure the values, and counter is for the loop. Now earlier I had this n for the loop, but the students were getting confused, so I said, okay, we will have another variable for the loop. It's okay, and we will start it from 1. Okay, now what is happening here? First look at this series. First we need 1, and then we have to add plus 1 by 1 factorial with it, and then 1 by 2 factorial with it, and so on. So the value of the variable will be updated every time up till 10 iterations. But what is changing? 1 is not changing. The denominator is changing, and it's not only incrementing, but actually its factorial is incrementing. मतलब कि हर बार न्यूमरेटर तो वही है, मगर मसला किस में आ रहा है? डिनोमिनेटर में। और ये नहीं कि डिनोमिनेटर आराम से इंक्रीमेंट हो रहा है, वो तो बड़ी आसानी से हम कर लेते हैं, बल्कि न्यूमरेटर का सॉरी डिनोमिनेटर का फैक्टोरियल इंक्रीमेंट, यानी कि 3 नहीं है बल्कि 3 फैक्टोरियल है। अब ये किस तरह है? दिस इज नॉट आवर जॉब। कि ये किस तरह, ये तो मैथ्स वाला है, मेरे ख्याल से शायद आप लोगों ने किया या ना किया। हम लोगों का सिर्फ ये मसला है कि हम इसको कैसे डालेंगे प्रोग्राम में, ठीक है। So that's it. Now we have stored 1 inside E already. Why? Because you see the first value is E, so E has 1. So what do we do? Next time we want to add 1 by 1 factorial to it, and then the other time we want to add 1 by 2 factorial into it, up till 1 by 10 factorial. So how are we going to do that? Let's see. Now let's run the loop. Counter is just a variable I have started for the loop. So counter has a value of 1, while counter is less than accuracy, and accuracy has the value of 10. So yes, it is less than accuracy. It is 1 and accuracy is 10. So the loop condition is true. Now inside the loop, what are we doing? Fact is equal to fact into n. Again, you can have any name factorial, but this statement means that we are keeping the old value of fact. And what is inside fact? 1. Okay. Multiply 1 with n. What is n? 1. So what comes inside factorial? 1. Okay. Now in the next step, e is equal to e plus 1 by factorial. What does that mean? Keep the value of e, this keeping, retaining is happening actually 2 times. So we are keeping the value of the old value of e and adding 1 by factorial with it. So what is the old value of e? 1. So it is 1 plus 1 by, and what is the value of fact here? 1. So 1 plus 1 by 1. And see, 1 plus 1 by 1. 1 factorial and 1 is the same thing. Okay. N plus plus counter plus plus. We have to do 2. That's why in the previous time I only used n as here, but the student said please use 2 counters. So again we have to increment this for this value, 2 factorial, 3 factorial. That's why we have to increment it, as well as the counter for the loop. Okay, we incremented both of them. Now in the next iteration n becomes 2, and of course counter also becomes 2. Now factorial has the previous value of 1, so 1 into 2. Okay, 2 is stored here. Now factorial of 2 is also 2. So what do we do? What was previously stored here? 1 plus 1 by 1 factorial. And now add 1 by factorial, which is 1 by 2. Okay. Now n becomes 3. What was here? 2. 2 3s are 6. And what is 6? 6 is actually 3 factorial. Add it and so on. Again, I have done it on a picture. Which will kind of make things, no, not this one. Okay, see, this was n. I was using the same variable for accuracy, but it's okay. So in the first iteration, 1 is inside the factorial. So what is here e? The previous value of e is 1 plus 1 by 1. Okay. When n becomes 2, or you can say counter becomes 2, so n also becomes 2 because we are incrementing both of them. So factorial has 1, now 1 is multiplied with 2. So factorial has the value of 2. And the previous value inside the e was 1 plus 1 by 1. This is e. This all is e. Now we are adding 1 by factorial to it in every iteration. So what is 1 by factorial? 1, and what is inside factorial? 2. So 2 is also 2 factorial. Similarly, when n becomes 3, so factorial is equal to factorial into n. Now factorial's previous value was 2. 2 into 3 is 6. So 6 is actually 3 factorial. So 1 by 3 factorial and so on. At the end, you are going to display E, and it is signed about 2 point something, 2.71828. You know what you did? You actually added all these terms together up till 10, but with the help of a loop. Now, my advice is that if you are still not able to understand it, then remember, here the compiler is not going to make things easy for you. You are going to use a page and a pen in order to understand these calculations. And how a page and a pen? put the value inside one variable, and then the way I have done it. In this way, you would easily know that what is happening here. Nothing is happening here. We are just adding one other term in the loop. And what is the one other term? We are actually incrementing the factorial, and then we are adding 1 plus 1 by factorial. इसमें हम कर क्या रहे हैं कि हम हर स्टेप में फैक्टोरियल को इंक्रीमेंट कर रहे हैं, ठीक है, क्योंकि सीरीज में वो इंक्रीमेंट हो रहा है। पहले 1/1 फैक्टोरियल था, फिर 1/2 फैक्टोरियल था, और क्या कर रहे हैं कि ई के साथ 1 प्लस 1/1 फैक्टोरियल और हर फैक्टोरियल को ऐड करते जा रहे हैं। तो हम असल में हर स्टेप में फैक्टोरियल कैलकुलेट कर रहे हैं। यहाँ देखिए, हियर वी आर कैलकुलेटिंग द फैक्टोरियल and then we are adding that term plus 1. 1 is remaining constant. Why? Because see here, 1 is constant, 1 is not changing. And the factorial is changing, so we are actually updating the factorial and then adding it. So this is what is happening. If you want to again learn it, you know what should you do? You should mathematically, with the help of calculator, add this series 1 plus 1/1 factorial plus 1/2 factorial plus 1/3, and then you would see that the answer is near up to 2.7 something. So then you would realize that what are we doing? We are doing the same thing, but with the help of a loop, or with C++ compiler. We cannot just do that manually, because then again, then what's the use of the compiler? So that entire series can be up to 100 as well. Although our variable cannot store up to 100, but we can have a variable that stores up to 100. So what if the user says no, don't measure up to 10, यानी कि अगर यूजर कहे कि 10 तक ना करे, 100 तक करे, 200 तक करे, फिर तो आपके लिए बड़ा मसला हो जाएगा अगर आप इसको मैन्युअली ऐड करते हैं. So our compiler is there to make things easier for us. No matter what number the user gives us, we can compensate it. This is some like the machine is doing the everything for us. Okay, now this is not the last lab. Let's go to our last lab, which is kind of the same lab with only one addition. Okay, another thing, we only have 3 series. I mean, I do only 3 series. One is this e, other is e power x, and another is for pi. Pi is also a series, and its value is 3.14. So that is measured by by an entire series. So that is kind of a bit difficult. So we would do the pi series with the help of for loop in the next week. But right now we are doing 2 series. Please practice them during this week, and in the next week, when I think the teacher will definitely do this series in theory, then it will be easier for you guys. जब टीचर कराएगी क्लास में तो ये आपको और भी आसान हो जाएगा, क्योंकि अभी आपके दिमाग में थोड़ा सा आइडिया आ गया है कि ये सीरीज क्या चीज है. सो व्हेन दे डू इट अगेन तो फिर आपको चीजें क्लियर हो जाएंगी, लेकिन सिर्फ टीचर्स नहीं, खुद भी बैठकर इसको करना है. एंड अनदर थिंग, I mean, I don't know if somebody has done any video right now, but when I was looking the previous time for these videos, there was no explanation of this series in C++ on the internet. Nobody has done it. I mean, when I searched it, the people have actually explained the series, in a maths way, in a mathematical way, not in the C++ way. That how should we put it? Although there were many other series, but not these one. So remember that these are not even on the internet. I don't know if somebody has added them this year, or maybe I have missed the video, but when I was searching, there was no video. Okay. Now the fourth lab task is actually the same previous one, but with an exception. We say that when a user enters some number 3 exponent, so this is how our exponential measures the value of, let's say, 3 exponent. Let's say x is that value. The user enters 3. So it measures 1 plus 3/1 factorial plus 3 square by 2 factorial plus 3 cube. So x can be any number of which exponent you want to find. So now, look at the series now. Instead of that old 1, see, 1. 1 is actually a constant here. Here, it is telling you that replace 1 with x, which the user enters, but not only x. Now, the portion is the same. The only thing is different is that now along with the factorial incrementing, you need another variable to store that number which the user entered, and that number is not only going to be there constantly, but that number is going to be square and cube and 4 next time. मतलब ये कि पिछली बार ये 1 था, लेकिन अब ये 1 नहीं है, बल्कि अब ये x है जो कि यूजर ने नंबर एंटर किया है, और हर बार ये x ही नहीं रहेगा, बल्कि दूसरी बार x स्क्वायर हो रहा है, फिर x क्यूब हो रहा है, एंड so on. So let's measure it up to 10. Okay, now these are the variables. I is equal to 1. This is for the uh, now I is here for the loop as well as for the incrementing of our factorial on the denominator. Denominator में जो factorial है उसको increment करने के लिए I है, और loop के लिए भी I ही है. Because we do not need, when you are doing programming, the programmer always tries to keep the code as short as possible. So we are actually using the same variable I. Okay. And the accuracy is 10. That means that it will only measure up to 10. 1 by x raised to the power, I think 10 by 10 factorial. Okay. And this is x. X is the value which the user will enter, and so on. Okay. Now let's ask the user for entering the value, and it is stored in the variable x. Now measure it with the while loop. While I is less than accuracy. Yes, I is here 1 and accuracy is 10. So yes, the condition is true. Now what should we do? Now first we are actually going to measure the factorial, and then we are going to put it inside the series variable. So factorial is equal to, not like the previous one, factorial into n, but factorial into x by I. Why? You see, what is factorial into x by I? Factorial is 1. 1 into, let's say the user entered 3. 1 into 3 by I. Let me show you the picture. Let's suppose the user entered 3. So 1 is equal to factorial has 1. 1 into 3 by I. I is also 1. So it is actually 3. So factorial has this value, and E is equal to, see what is E? E plus factorial. So E is actually 1. 1 plus factorial. What is 1? 1 plus 3 by 1. The same thing. 1 into 3 by 1 is actually 3 by 1. So factorial's value is 3 by 1, and now we add E plus factorial. So 3 by 1 is here. So you can see down the series is now, 1 plus 3 by 1, the sum of 1 plus 3 by 1 is in E. But I am writing it here in order to keep it easier. मतलब अब कंपाइलर में E के अंदर तो 1 plus 3 by 1 का सम पड़ा हुआ है, लेकिन यहाँ पर मैं आपको उसको अलग अलग करके दिखा रही हूँ ताकि आपको समझ आए कि किस तरह ये सीरीज ऐड हो रही है. उसमें तो इसकी वैल्यू पड़ी होगी ना 1 plus 3 by 1 की, लेकिन क्योंकि हम तो इसको ऐड करके आपको इसका आउटपुट आंसर दे रहे हैं, लेकिन मैं आपको ये इसलिए ये लिख रही हूँ ताकि ये टर्म्स के आपको पता चले. नाउ इन द नेक्स्ट iteration, I is now 2. So the loop comes here again. Now factorial has the previous value of 3 by 1. See, the previous value in factorial was 3 by 1. So 3 by 1 into what is x? 3 by 2. 3 into 3 by 2. 3 3s are 9. 9 by 2. So if you see, what is 9 by 2? 9 by 2 is actually 3 square by 2 factorial. And again, to the previous value, 1 plus 3 by 1 was the previous value of E. Add factorial, which is actually 3 square by 2 factorial. Okay. Now, when I is 3, what was factorial has 3 square by 2. Factorial में क्या पड़ा हुआ था? 9 by 2 या 3 square by 2, एक ही बात है. ये पड़ा हुआ था. दोबारा क्या कर रहा है हम? We are now multiplying x by I. Now the value of I is 3 and the value of x is 3. That means multiply it with 3 by 3. So what it will become? 9 3s are 27, 2 3s are 6. 27 is nothing but 3 cube, and 6 is actually 3 factorial. So again add this here, and the process will go on. See, I have wrote it here. At the end, you will get the value of E. So let's say I enter the value, I say 3 exponential. It is giving me 20.0634. You can check it with your calculator as well. 3 exponential अगर आप निकालना चाहे. Any questions?